So I have some flyers here. If you haven't received one of these, I'm just going to pass them around. These are a message from HK on Jay's Peace Partner. I graduated from college in 1966, which was during the time of the buildup of troops in Vietnam.
Dale, can we come closer to you?
Yeah.
Oh, please come closer. Thank you, Vicki.
My draft board pursued me while I was in college. And so 1 week after I graduated, I got classified as 1A, that is eligible for the draft. I appealed because I'd been accepted into graduate school, but I lost the appeal. And I later learned that my local draft board had a policy that somebody from every family had to serve in the military. And my 3 older brothers had all managed to avoid the draft. And so I was the one who was left to be drafted. And I didn't believe in war. And so I realized that my church would not support a conscientious objector status. And I thought about going to Canada, but I didn't really have any connections. So I decided to enlist in the Navy as a hospital corpsman because I figured helping to save lives for 4 years was better than killing people for 2.
Yeah. Hey.
The Navy recruiter actually was very honest with me. And he told me that as a hospital corpsman, I would be sent to Vietnam with the Marines, which is exactly what happened. I was in a relatively secure area, but one day I witnessed a guy get blown to bits. There were no recognizable parts of his body, and it took us half an hour to identify who it was. As a hospital corpsman, it was my job to pick up the body parts. There was a phrase that I heard many times in Vietnam from both Marines and hospital corpsmen, and that was, when they get back to the real world. It was like we were all treating this like a bad dream that we would wake up from and then we could forget about, or like text that we could highlight and then click on delete and it would all go away. But for anyone who's been in warfare, the war does not end when the guns fall silent. It continues in our minds and bodies until the day we die. We now talk about moral injury that people suffer from, and it has led many veterans to take their own lives because they can no longer live with the memories that they have. After I returned to the States and got on with my studies, I was fairly successful in suppressing everything. That is, until the U.S. invaded Iraq, and then it all came pouring back. I wrote about a couple of incidents at that time to help process. And a couple of years ago, I decided to write a letter to the young man whose body was blown up. Dear Lance Corporal James, sorry that I can't remember your last name. We actually never met except in death. And although I didn't know you, I shall never forget you. As soon as we heard the explosion, Al and I rushed to see if we could help, but there was nothing we could do. We collected as many parts of your body as we could find. I'm sorry that we couldn't find something better than a cardboard box in which to put the pieces of your body. No one deserves to be treated that way. I labeled the box and we loaded it onto the chopper. That was my total encounter with you, but you left a permanent mark on my brain and my psyche. It was all so senseless. This war without a legitimate purpose. We were told there to go and help build up a nation and bring freedom, but you can't build a nation by destroying it. The people of Vietnam deserve better, and you should not have been placed in that situation. It is for you that I work to end all war. It is for all the other 58,220 Americans who died and the countless number who were injured that I work to end all war. It is for the millions of Vietnamese who were killed and injured that I work to end all war. With compassion for you and all the others, HM3 Herman. Lyndon Johnson said that we were in Vietnam because South Vietnam had lots of resources and we needed to keep North Vietnam from having access to them. He said that we were in Vietnam to protect America's interests. That's the same phrase that Donald Rumsfeld used about going into Iraq. Colin Powell said the weapons of mass destruction was the one justification that everyone in the administration could agree on. In other words, the decision was made, and then they looked for some reason that they could give to the American public. I lived in Uganda from 2004 to 2010. And one day I was staying in a hotel in northern Uganda, and I was watching BBC on the lobby TV. They were interviewing an American soldier about an action that the U.S. military had taken in an Iraqi town. The American soldier responded to their questions by saying, "We had to kill them because they were trying to protect their homes." In 2018, North Carolina citizens paid $15.63 billion to support the military. You see, the military needs that money so that they can buy more weapons, enabling the weapons manufacturers to remain profitable so that they can support legislators who will then vote to increase the military budget so that they can buy more weapons, who will then vote, so they can buy more weapons and keep the manufacturers profitable so that they can support legislators, and on it goes. And we need wars so that all of this appears justifiable. Killing other people is immoral, and we need to stop this cycle of violence and legalize bribery and corruption. U.S. action in Iraq and then Afghanistan and the support for other military actions in the area has contributed to the major destabilization of the entire region. Our actions have provided militant factions there with plenty of material for recruiting young people to their cause. We had no legitimate reason for invading Iraq, and we have no legitimate reason for continuing to destabilize the Middle East. Today, we are spending between 4 and 5 times as much on the military as on anti-poverty programs. Yet, in 1967, 52 years ago, Dr. Martin Luther King said, "A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death."
Amen.
Welcome.